Barbara was just saying, all the different areas of the world that he's talked about, you know, stabbing our allies in the back, and he's going to do this, he's going to do that, unilaterally, just on his say-so. Like, wow, no.
USAID.
Yeah, I know. I saw that article that you posted from,
Oh, it's gotten worse.
You know,
It's
yeah.
awful.
yeah. I don't care. That's that whole thing of America first. You know, they've been looking for a long time that America has a mission, you know, that it inherited from its early foundation, which is a mission to be a light to the world.
Right.
And not a religious right light, but a helper, you know, and they don't want, they hate it. Why should we be giving all of our money away?
It's not all room. I mean, it's such a small percent.
It's less
I
than
know,
1%.
less than
It's
1%.
between 0.5% and 1% of our foreign aid, you know.
And what's the percent for the military?
Oh my gosh, don't even bring that up, because then, you know, then somehow you really
You're
don't
not
care about
patriotic.
America then.
Right.
Because if you know, you can't challenge anything that needs to be spent for military.
But the 1% is for peace.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of telling you where the priorities are, but that's always been that way. I mean, well, not always,
No,
but
not
it's
always.
been that way for a long time.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
it's-
well, the military's always been huge, of course, but
Eisenhower warned us, right?
But that whole thing of aid to other countries like that, it's just thrown out of, you know, liberal, it's a bunch of soft-hearted liberal people that, you know, are gonna.
Want to do good.
Yeah, gonna give
that
their money
wanna do
away, and it doesn't
good.
make any difference anyway.
well, it is making a difference.
Oh, I know, but they
course
don't
it is.
care. They don't care. Hello, Colette.
Hello.
The only
Good morning.
reason that they would care is if the problems spread here.
Yeah. And they
And
will.
then they'll blame
And
it
they
on
will.
And they will. It's a small world. Haven't we learned that?
Well, I mean,
You know.
doesn't COVID show you that?
No,
They're ignoring bird flu, which people are saying we should be putting the money in now to make sure that we're ready if it starts to being muted between human beings instead of just animals, but
What, that bird flu?
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, thought you were talking about the Riviera.
Yeah. Riviera and Gaza.
Yeah.
That we talked about already.
Yeah.
Can you
Oh,
imagine
darn.
through the Mediterranean and seeing his name for miles up on buildings?
That's what he's envisioning.
Of course. He wants to do that all over the
Well,
world.
he does. He tried to do it in Russia.
Right.
And he
You
really,
know, he tried to do it in Atlantic City.
he did. Failed.
It
It
didn't
didn't last
work.
very long.
He's failed everywhere he's
He's
gone.
that dumb. He is
Yeah.
he's a stupid man.
But he's got an ego that impresses people. It impresses people. It's his ambition.
He has a certain kind of brilliance, which is evil, but it,
Well, yeah.
but it is, I mean, he does have that kind of, and I think it has to do with his ego, but, yeah.
But all the people who
He
actually,
figures out ways.
the people with the actual brains though have latched onto him because they see him as a vehicle to get done what they want to do.
He's the entertainment man.
Yeah,
He is.
exactly,
He
the PR
absolutely
dude.
is. He's the front end man. As long as you don't come up against him, as long as you don't disagree with anything he says.
And that is the flaw in their big plan, because these guys that are trying to do whatever they want to do under the guise of being, they're going to end up pissing him off somehow, and then they're out. Then it'll be somebody else. But none of them do good. When do good is a pejorative, that's when you're done. Really? Come on. What's wrong with doing good in the world? As opposed to what? Screwing the world? That's exactly what
But
they're
it's a,
trying to
you know,
do.
that's a,
Oh, that's a,
it's an attitude that has laid dormant.
Uh-huh.
Even in the churches that I have served.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's laid dormant, always. You know, you
hubris.
go to the budgets of the churches, big churches, even churches that are proud of their, whatever, and they're not gonna pay any mission fund for anything that isn't us until
Local or
until the end of the
national.
year. Get to the end of the year, and if there's surplus after everything
You might give it to,
then
orphans
we'll
someplace.
give it over to the mission committee. They don't want to talk about what they were going to do, just, here, you guys deal with it. And that's been a pattern in every church I've served,
And it's a long time
except
too,
here.
because the little envelopes that we used to get, ours, theirs, no.
But it's, and I'd say every church I served, but I fought that battle in the biggest church I served, which was Bound Brook. And I just, I went in, I said, we're not doing it like that anymore. We're not paying our missions responsibility in December. We're gonna budget it, and we're gonna pay it like the electric bill. Because it's part of, in some ways, it should be the first thing we pay.
Yeah.
And so I fought that fight there, and then what they ended up doing was they ended up using their trustees and their finance committee to divert money away from being seen as available to be used that way. The cry poor story.
Sure they don't work from Elon Musk?
I think they work for the American spirit, unfortunately, where it has come to.
Well,
It's
human, not just American.
Yeah, but
It's all-
we
We have the most,
yeah, I mean, I think that's the difference, I
Right.
really do. And I don't see much of that spirit among the Ugandans that I look at. And they're poor.
yeah. It seems the more you have, that's harder. Once you have it, it's difficult to give it up. And that's what
And then
What
if
a
you
lot of people fear
having
is
it
giving
taken
it
away
up.
from you,
Right.
right? But
how much can you want? How much do you need? That's
they don't ever ask themselves that.
a little more than.
I've been reading the book by Robin Carver. She wrote the Sweetgrass book, but this is the Serviceberry, and she talks about the Native American work of gifting economy and how important it is to be part of the community.
Who is that?
And
It's
feeling that you give something not because you're going to get something, but because you're a part of this community. But unfortunately, that's not the mantra for a lot of people.
And I think then, if we give ourselves permission to realize how brilliant we are, but in that little tiny conversation that we've just shared, I don't know how, in chemistry, they talk about trying to isolate things out of a mixture or whatever. What is now presenting itself in the language that we're using about the predisposition to say enough is never enough and more is just a relative term, and then is in fact at the heart of what God is angry about in these texts. It is the one thing that challenges the mercy and the generosity and all of the kindness and long-sufferingness of God. That's what the prophets are trying to say.
Yep.
They're trying to say, and by the way, not only that, but okay, you want to try to live that way. You think that makes sense to you, that idea of me first, because that's really what it is. It's me first, and then the prophets believe that leads to massive destruction of your life. And by you, the community life, your life on this planet, your life on this globe, and everywhere you turn. Look at the environmental issues. What is at the heart of it's not lack of knowledge. It is not lack of knowledge. It is not. It is an absolute resolve, unwillingness to look at the facts and to adjust the way we live, to get people to live in a way that allows for longevity, for their children's lives, for their children's children, to have a world to live in, and to have variety of species, to have the wonder in this resident evil that gets into human beings will convince human beings to pursue their own demise.
Yep.
And it's a marvel. It is an absolute marvel that that is what takes place. You know, it's just,
It's what makes people vote against their own self-interest over and over again. And just a certain amount of ignorance. I know the facts are there, but people, either they see the facts and they just don't believe them, or, you know,
I think they're looking at alternate facts in a lot of cases.
well, that could
you know.
be.
yeah, well, they look around until they find somebody that will present
Will tell them.
facts
Yeah.
that
What they
support
want.
their
Yeah.
inner feelings. They
They're watching
want,
Fox
yeah.
News, you know.
They want to see it the way they want to see it. And they don't want anybody messing around with that.
Right.
You know, they don't,
The flaw, they couldn't possibly be greedy. I mean, that, you know, Americans, the myth is always, we are the most generous
And
nation.
we are.
We are.
But guess
But
what?
we could
have
be a
more than the
lot
others
more
here, too.
generous, yeah. And, yeah, we fool ourselves. We, you know, it's a lot of hubris. We're so wonderful, nothing bad can happen.
but we have, I mean, this has been happening to me in the last couple of weeks. I don't see myself as uneducated. I've spent a lot of time
No,
in
you're
school,
very-
you know, but what I am aware of is, who knew that Canada supplies electricity to the United States? Who knew that?
Well,
There's
some of the
so many
people,
things like that.
yeah, some of the people have
So-
been warning us that, you know, we need our neighbors to the north
Yeah.
and the south.
Oh, well, that's nice, you
Right,
know.
exactly.
Yeah, but I live inside this world that somebody created for me, that yes, America is, you know, has such a prowess, has such a self-sufficiency to it, but when you listen to what's being uncovered is, we're not self-sufficient
Of
at
course not.
all.
No.
I mean, the oil embargoes that happened, when we came to our knees over the fact that we were oil dependent on
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia. Now, we've addressed that, you know, we manufacture our own, but Canada provides it. And
They provide most of the liquefied LPN, what do they call
Yeah.
it?
yeah,
Liquefied
liquid natural gas,
something,
right?
yeah.
Yeah,
And all the gas that comes from the sands, the tar sands.
right.
And that was the big thing in the last several years about how they're shipping it to us, because they're putting in these pipelines that crack and leak and.
Right.
Have you not been paying attention? I mean, where is that, why is there a pipeline there? It's coming from Canada, folks, you know,
Providing for us.
uh-huh.
And
And then, you
That's
know,
why we don't want to worry about those leaks, you know.
exactly, because don't
Well, that's
talk
because
about
you send it
that.
through Indian reservations where
Yeah, who
people
cares
don't
about
matter.
this?
Exactly.
You put it through where no one can complain.
And then, well, maybe we don't have to worry about that because we'll just take over Canada, and then we can have no problems telling them what we need, what we want. It's just right there, it's ours. Everything is ours,
That's
and
gonna be
we'll
one more
divvy it out
state.
the way we want.
And you know, it
Yeah,
reminds
the
me, again,
51st.
in history, you look for patterns. I speak only of shallow knowledge, but this is actually what captivated the heart and mind of the nation at the time of Israel, when David was their mighty ruler. And they went from fear and defensiveness, which is what King Saul was supposed to do. With David, they developed, I learned this word, I've known it before, but they developed an expansionist frame of mind. And the expansionism is, you have all these isms that are out there. But one of the things that the current president is sort of rolling the veil back on is that he is not America first, he's an expansionist. We're going to expand bounds. And that's what David sold to the Israelites, which makes up, the whole one-third of the Bible is their move towards expansionism and the consequences of it for what happened with their neighbors. That the neighbors were willing then to join together into alliances to go beat them back. and they weren't satisfied with beating them back to their existing boundaries. They went,
Sounds familiar.
we want to see you removed from the face of the earth. And so, and then the prophets,
We'll move you
And you
out.
were supposed to be the blessing.
I know,
You were called to be the
I
blessing.
know.
Did
So-
they want to build resorts? Is that what they,
I think they did. Actually, the Babylonians did.
the hanging gardens, right?
But
Well, I mean, all empires do that. They start out small, and then they have a few, military escapades where they win, and then all of a sudden, that's not enough. We have to control everything. I mean, they come, they go, all these empires. Talk to the British.
Yeah, the British
they're all
Empire
over
faced the same
They can
thing.
tell you, don't go
Yeah.
there, it's probably not what you want to do, but we have,
We've done it.
yeah.
and it took a long time for Britain. I mean, even still today, there's some vestiges of the British Empire that are still in place.
Canada's one of them,
Yeah, I
actually.
know,
They're
I
a
know.
Commonwealth
That's one of
country. It's true. That's true.
But
They're
That
all
is
over
one
the
of them.
world.
this,
Yeah.
I think it's important to say all this because the text that we're going to read today is going to throw us back into what is God so angry about? Because in this text, God is raging and goes into quite a bit of detail about how God is going to then make God's presence known in the world. I think, if I've read the right chapter, it's 17, isn't it? 16. Oh, it is 16. Yes. Yep, 16. And Jeremiah becomes a living parable. His life, what he does, what he doesn't do, how he's allowed to live and what he's not allowed to have, becomes a metaphor, I guess. It's a metaphor for what his life is supposed to be telegraphing out to people to say, look at what's happening to me. This is your future. This is how God is going to relate to you. So, who would like to read? Jeremiah 16.
It's my turn.
Okay.
I'm not gonna argue.
The word of the Lord came to me. You shall not take a wife, nor shall you have sons or daughters in this place. For thus says the Lord concerning the sons and daughters who are born in this place, and concerning the mothers who bear them and the fathers who beget them in this land. They shall die of deadly diseases. They shall not be lamented, nor shall be buried. They shall become like dung on the surface of the ground. They shall perish by the sword and by famine, and their dead bodies shall become food for the birds of the air and for the wild animals of the earth. For thus says the Lord, do not enter the house of mourning, or go to lament, or bemoan them. For I have taken away my peace from this people, says the Lord, my steadfast love and mercy. Both great and small shall die in this land. They shall not be buried, and no one shall lament for them. There shall be no gnashing or shaving of the head. No one shall break bread for the mourner to offer comfort to the dead, nor shall anyone give them the cup of consolation to drink for their fathers or their mothers. You shall not go into the house of feasting to sit with them, to eat and drink. For thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, I am going to banish from this place in your days and before your eyes the voice of mirth and the voice of gladness, the voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride. And when you tell this people all these words, and they say to you, why has the Lord pronounced all this great evil against us? What is our iniquity? What is the sin that we have committed against the Lord, our God? Then you shall say to them, it is because your ancestors have forsaken me, says the Lord, and have gone after other gods, and have served and worshipped them, and have forsaken me, and have not kept my law, and because you have behaved worse than your ancestors. For here you are, every one of you, following your stubborn evil will, refusing to listen to me. Therefore I will hurl you out of this land into a land that neither you nor your ancestors have known, and there you shall serve other gods day and night, for I will show you no favor. Therefore the days are surely coming, says the Lord, when it shall no longer be said, as the Lord lives, who brought the people of Israel up out of the land of Egypt, but as the Lord lives, who brought the people of Israel up out of the land of the north and out of all the lands where he had driven them. For I will bring them back to their own land that I gave to their ancestors. I am now sending for my fishermen, says the Lord, and they shall catch them. And afterward I will send for many hunters, and they shall hunt them from every mountain and every hill and out of the clefts of the rocks. For my eyes are on all their ways. They are not hidden from my presence, nor is their iniquity concealed from my sight. And I will doubly repay their iniquity and their sin, because they have polluted my land with the carcasses of their detestable idols, and have filled my inheritance with their abominations. O Lord, my strength and my stronghold, my refuge in the day of trouble, to you shall the nations come from the ends of the earth and say, our ancestors have inherited nothing but lies, worthless things in which there is no profit. Can mortals make for themselves gods? Such are no gods. Therefore, I am surely going to teach them. This time I'm going to teach them my power and my might, and they shall know that my name is the Lord. Wow.
And always, in the church, we always end in the lesson, here ends the reading of the Lord. But
No.
what was it? It was,
Well, there's
Thus
one.
saith the Lord,
There's
something
one.
like that.
There's one for the gospel. And there's one for the
Right,
the Old
right,
Testament.
right.
They're different.
Yeah. But anyway.
That sounds the reading from Jeremiah. It's
Right,
one
and,
way.
and then there was a thanks be to God.
Yep.
And that's the one I wanted to get to go, really? Okay. Hey, thanks for that, God. Woo. I mean, that's, there's a little bit of the hopeful turn, right? If I understand it right, I'm going to send out my fishermen and my hunters, and they'll find you after you're dispersed all over the earth. And when you come back, you will carry with you a knowledge that there is no other God but God. You can't make gods on your own, and you won't survive. But my goodness, the complete, the poetry of desolation, which is, these people are going to die, and when they die, nobody touches their body. Nobody comforts their family. Nobody goes in. I don't want one word, not one funeral ceremony to be done. I don't want their bodies attended to. I want you to leave them as if they're...
And in those days, the ritual over dead bodies, I think, was a whole lot more ingrained in the culture and the religion, right, than even ours, for sure.
Totally. I mean, that was why it was such, for criminals, the abomination was you didn't get to be buried. But it was more than that. It didn't get 3 to 5 days of the village completely stopping everything they're doing, the nurturing, and the eating and the bounty that comes to take the place of your grief,
In the house of feasting.
Yeah. It's like, you got to do something because this person's died and your life is destroyed. But no comfort from God, no comfort from the community. Instead, you will be rolled out. It's like you're going to be in a car. They're going to open the door and kick your body out on the highway. and the wolves and the
They're going to
jackals
be like dung.
Yeah, you're going to be like dung on the ground. It's graphic. But again, I think if I look in myself, and I'm not making myself exempt from, I have these same tendencies. I can decry others who worship the god of money, but honestly,
You have your share, right?
I got my share of temples in my life that are instructed to my comfort, to my way of life, to my convenience, and I try to make myself feel better by, samples of it going off to other people. I try to be
Yeah, and I think those idols, it's really easy to think of them in terms, when you read this, in terms of the actual physical idols that were made instead of gods, instead of God, to be worshipped and so forth. But our idols are certainly more subtle than that, but we certainly have them.
Yeah, and actually, they were more honest because they built physical objects to represent their idols.
True.
You know, they were living by the rules of their idols: greed, wealth, us first. All those gods of, you give them whatever name you want to give them, but every god had a characteristic, and a characteristic, a big part of that way of life was the god of fertility. That I'm going to have children, and I need to have children to survive in this world. I got to pay my homage to the god
Fertility.
of fertility, the one who gives children. And then in the mind of the prophet, there's God, God's arms full of back, who gives you children? Who? But they made physical statues to address the fertility, the wealth, power, and also defense. That was another big.
I was going to say, I think security,
Yep,
defense
and security.
Security is
Yep.
and I think we all here in the United States are big on security.
Oh, I think we are.
Really big on
Well,
security.
we have stuff everybody else wants.
Yeah, and
So
we also know
we
that-
certainly don't want them to come
And
overrun us.
But
and
we also know that there are those who are ready to come to our aid. The police can be called.
Yes.
There's all kinds of layers of security. It's amazing. When I traveled to Costa Rica, one of the things I carry back, and I can still see it, is, they brag a lot. Costa Rica doesn't have a military. They have no military. And they also really don't have a police force.
I know. I saw that too.
So when you go down the roads, what you see is walls with razor wire on the top.
We have that,
And everyone for themselves in defending yourself. And it's true in a lot of places in the world. But not here.
No,
The whole system.
our Ugandan friends are just amazed that we don't have bars on our windows and we don't have big high fences and all of that,
And
they're like, what?
where do you find them? Where do you find that we do have high fences and walls?
Where there's the
In the
most
city.
wealth. Where are you gonna go?
Boca Raton, you go down to a house in Boca Raton, the walls are 12 feet high.
Yeah.
And there's shrubbery that in front of them makes it so you can't even see where the walls are. You go up to the Kennedy compound, every single piece of property up there. And I always felt like they don't want the poor to see how rich they were.
I wish that were the reason.
Because you can go out in a boat and go, look at, look what they
But
have.
that's not the point.
But I think that's what Trump is trying very hard to do right now with telling us all, hey, we're being invaded by people who want what you have. They want your job, they want your wealth, and people are afraid of that. We are afraid of those kinds of things. Let's face it, I am too. I don't want somebody breaking into my house and,
But,
stealing all my stuff, but there's a point where you say, come on, you're just scaring people. If you shared some more of that wealth, you wouldn't have to worry about, it's like,
Well,
but it's hard to do, to give your stuff away.
I think a lot of it has to do, though, with the way we live in sort of isolation. Because, as soon as you have a friend who's from Costa Rica or whatever, or Uganda or whatever, your opinion begins to change.
It does.
And you care about them, and you care about where they come from and so forth. But because we are so isolated, we don't have much of that experience.
I listened to the elderly lady from Ramallah yesterday saying the Israelis now are in the West Bank, they're coming into our homes, they gather us into one room, and while we're all in one room, they go through the house, purportedly looking for whatever, something illegal, but they're stealing. they're stealing money and jewelry, and then she said, and then when they leave, they left us with all the food in the house dumped into one pot so that we can't eat it. So it's no good. They've spoiled the food. So it's like just trying to decimate the people, and no dignity anymore. A closed door doesn't mean anything. They just knock it down, and it doesn't matter if I don't know how old. It's relative of one of our ladies who cooks, and she came here, she's waiting to go back, she's not sure if she'll ever go back.
Yeah.
Things are getting bad in the West Bank, they're bombing there now. What is it all in aid of, so there can be more, there's two dictators standing up there yesterday. It was sickening, saying what they have in mind for the place.
Yeah.
And is that really what people want? I think the majority of Israelis don't want that.
No, I agree.
I can't imagine that. It's not good for anyone. It's just horrible. And this is what, God is angry about.
I know, it's like, here it is, it's in the ancient code. It has been ignored in generation after generation, and those generations have come, they have gone, and, this attempt to be, I can tell you, it's been, I don't know, maybe back to the first Bush, I began to be alarmed in speeches that the presidents made when they would say, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
And I would often think to myself, you need to convince the Congress. I will convince the government to do this. That language is gone. And now, when you have these two, as you call them, dictators, standing there and saying, hey, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do. Like when Trump talked about Canada, or when he talked about Mexico. He never made any reference to anybody else he had to convince. It was like,
And when he did, it was my generals, my army. It's not any, he doesn't feel a part of the country, and he doesn't need to.
he doesn't want to.
He knows he's a dictator.
Nobody can tell him what to do.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is, and he is there, whether he knows it or not, he is there because still there is an overwhelming population of support for him. Because if his support would all go away now, it couldn't be stopped. But in 60 or 70 or 80 days, it won't matter.
People in Congress that know better
This is, yeah.
are aiding and abetting. It's with them, just so they can get reelected. To what?
But they
There
won't,
be any government
they may not be reelected either.
Of course.
I think that's
There won't be any Congress to be reelected too. What's the point? They're superfluous. If they're not being able to do their job and put a check on the executive powers, then who needs them? That was their job. They were the ones who appropriated the money, made the laws.
I am really, really disappointed and shocked at the Republican senators and congressmen.
And do you listen to them spin it?
I-
It's like when they're done talking, it's like, what did they say? A
Well-
bunch of gobbledygook about.
But I saw something that Barbara sent me on Blue Sky. They had all these videos, short videos of different members of Congress really impressively talking.
Yeah.
So maybe there's hope. Well, I don't think that.
Half of Congress is still trying to do something.
Well, even if 5, 6, 7, 8 of the other,
That's all you need.
and some of them have got to do that. I wish I had one as my representative, so I could be all over them. But
Yeah, see, we have Democrats. So every time I write to my congressperson or my senator, I'm talking to people who, hey, I'm
Preaching to
already
the choir.
working for that. They write back, I'm trying it,
His administration's coloring outside the lines.
oh,
I mean, when you
You
write-
think?
when you write to Congress and you say, Congress, hey, you've got to do something. I think some of these people feel like, do something about what? I mean, nobody's ever attacked the computer systems of the government.
need to get organized, yeah.
This is coming around the back door and
And-
sneaking in.
And I do think that is the biggest part of this whole problem, is that it was pretty sneaky and rapid.
Well, that's the plan. If you
I
hit them
know.
with everything all at once.
Yeah, but that,
They can't concentrate. On the Daily Show last night, that one fellow, what's his name, Ayada? He had all the law books, and they said, okay, how do we stop this? And he's
Yep.
like, I'll let you know in a minute. So then they go on with a few other things, and they come back with something else. How do we stop that? Oh, I'm still working on this. I can't, well, do them both at once. Oh, okay. By the end of the segment, he's like, his glasses are hanging off, and the law books are all, it's too many things at once.
They gotta get someone who
To
knows.
say how it's illegal.
yeah, what kind of
And they knew that.
suit can we?
Yeah, they said it's a snowstorm, and that the legislation, lawsuits, there's a snowstorm of lawsuits which are now lined up to be filed without nearly enough people to actually pick them up and be able to do it.
If you can get them into the courts,
Yeah.
because some of the courts are presided over by, co-conspirators. I mean, that's all you can call them. They're awful.
Well,
I know the FBI agents have entered a lawsuit to preserve their jobs. I think we need the FBI.
you think?
I think so. I mean, the next time there's a big terrorist attack, what are they going to say? Well, where was the FBI? Well, I think you fired them all. Really?
Well, there was a pandemic preparation, all put in, and physical structures and everything
Plan of response.
during the Obama
That's right.
era.
Right.
And it was totally dismantled under,
It was ignored
It was literally
completely.
thrown out. It's like, that's never gonna be.
We're not going to pay any attention to anything they handed us. Right. Thank you very much. So he did it again. They didn't sign any of the paperwork they were supposed to for an orderly transition.
and ethics. None of that, that's right.
Because that's what they wanted to avoid. They wanted to avoid having to account for the money they were spending on this transitional period, and so God only knows how much they stole already. And now they're in there with the computers rewriting the code so that nobody will ever know how much they've stolen from us. And I think that's the end, that's the be-all, end-all for Trump, is how much money can I steal and give to my friend? How much grift can I get?
And talk about never having enough.
The
Elon
richest
Musk.
man in the world is saying, don't want HIV medicine to go for people in Africa. No. How dare he? I don't want somebody, who's starving in South America to have a morsel of food, because it's such, like, what?
Governmental waste.
Yeah. And I'm gonna save it for who? For me. That's where it's gonna go. Really, it's like
And I think, again,
colossal waste.
if you bring into the metaphors that the biblical writers
Give us back to
use,
this.
which is, so here's what is God, God is the God of the one who brought children up out of Egypt, whatever, but God is going to be known as the one who organizes the world's response against this kind of greed. And it's not going to be pretty.
Yeah.
So that,
Oh my God. I even down to, he insisted that the whole problem in the fires in Los Angeles was there wasn't enough water. And they kept telling him, no, we have plenty of water, it's the water pressure. The system's not designed for like thousands of houses to go up flames all at once. He insisted it was the water. What did he do? He had the Army Corps of Engineers open the floodgates.
It doesn't even go there.
And now it's in this, new lake that is connected to nothing. They
Yeah.
can't even retrieve it to water the crops.
no, I'm going to say, and now the irrigation systems are all running dry, and
Yeah.
all the farmers.
In the springtime,
tonight.
He wasn't gonna be wrong. I'm saying I'm going to open,
How
and
can
I
he,
did.
really, truly, how can he do that?
I don't know, because he's in charge of the, there's a federal program everywhere, right? Federal government is everywhere, and the way that he's in charge of the he is the federal government.
And
He is the
the
federal.
Army Corps of Engineers comes under his jurisdiction.
He is already,
as
the
Commander-in-Chief.
office of president is already a very powerful office. But it hasn't yet, incidents where it's been used sort of unilaterally without Congress's permission. But it has not yet been tested at this level.
Well, this is not even asking Congress, this is
This is
asking advisors who.
California. The governor of
Exactly.
California said nobody consulted us. But that's by the time you respond, it's too late. And that is
He's
what
already-
they're counting on, because under ordinary circumstances and normal leaders, they would say, I think we should do this. Oh, and then the governor says, well, I don't think you should, and this is why. Then you get together and you talk about it.
Figure it out.
And you figure it out. And then if you still think it's a good idea, you might try to work toward it in a lawful way. But he just goes ahead and
Because he thinks all of
no
that.
rule of law
No, he
comes
doesn't.
into play.
He thinks all of that effort to build consensus is a waste of time. There's no reason to build consensus.
He knows best, I'm gonna go right too.
And
Well, he doesn't have any sense of community.
no,
Who you think?
I mean, there you go.
Yeah.
and again, to bring it back to this,
You do it.
this makes me want to feel like, wow, this has never been happened before. It has happened over and over and over and over again, and it never turns good. It never comes out good, because in some ways, where's that phrase about your stubborn evil hearts? Remember that?
Yep.
In this, because of your stubborn evil hearts somewhere. And I think, that's, here it is. It's in verse 12. Because you have behaved worse than your ancestors.
Yeah.
For here you are, every one of you, following your stubborn evil will, refusing to listen to me. So I will hurl you out of this land into a land that you don't know. You can go ahead and serve the other gods day and night. I guess, in those other countries, the other gods are in power. You can go ahead and be their servant. Go ahead. You want it?
Yeah.
It's,
It does end on a little
it
bit.
defies rational thinking. Yeah, it's like, what can get any worse? And it happens every day. It gets
Yeah.
worse. Unbelievable.
There's so many examples of it, even in the smallness of our family lives. I watched, my mother had one sister, and my grandfather had accumulated some wealth, but my mother and her sister, their mother died. She got cancer and she died when they were about, 17 or 18 years old. And then my grandfather remarried immediately. And in his remarriage, the two daughters became convinced that this new bride of their father was going to steal all the money that they would have inherited. And I can tell you, it dominated that fear, that practical coldness and hardness dominated their lives until my grandfather died. And it was a shame. I mean, we would go there, but
No mirth.
there's no mirth. That's right. There's some place in here where it says there'll be no mirth, there'll be no happiness in this land. But and it came all the way down to when my grandfather was dying and my step-grandmother was taking care of him in the hospital. He started to lose, his faculties. Oh, he told my aunt that she was poisoning him.
Did those stepmother.
that the stepmother was poisoning him. And I mean, it induced a rage in my aunt, and my mother was affected by it, and nobody knew what to do about it, and it wasn't true anyway. It wasn't. I mean, the man had, I don't know if you know what trifacial neuralgia
Oh,
is.
yeah.
This main nerve in his face was inflamed.
I had shingles in that nerve.
Right, so he had it
So miserable.
24 hours a day.
I can't even
At
imagine.
one point, I asked him, I don't mind, just, dumb, curious kid, I just said, Papa, what's it feel like to you? He said, you see the wood stove over there? He said, you go over and lay your cheek on the wood stove. I live with that every day. And he did, and he was a very proud man. And they could have cut the nerve, but their mapping of the nerve system was not good, and so they couldn't guarantee that the nerve they cut was going to be that nerve.
Right.
It might cause him to lose control of his face. He might drool. The side of his mouth might. And
It has many branches. It's a
he
very,
was too proud. He didn't want to drool the rest of his life, so he lived. Anyway, all that comes down to the fact that he took boxes of painkillers, and they have side effects.
sure.
And so when he was lying in the hospital, the side effects of the years of those painkillers were coming to bear. And he began to imagine that, this was being brought about by his wife. And my aunt, more so than my mother, was absolutely convinced that, that was right, that she was going to take everything. And, I mean, I guess she inherited all of his money. The only thing they got was the house they lived in, and then they split that up. But the point is, this resident evil, right? This resident evil lives in the hearts of human beings. And it destroys families, it destroys nations, and
Businesses,
yeah,
churches, schools, it does.
it does. And if you go into, the privacy of AA recovery rooms, what you find is, this whole room full of addicts sitting around. When they begin to share their stories, it's this which is at the heart of their life-destroying ways. It is so that, let go and let God, all those little pithy sayings of the recovery movement are all simply trying to speak to the center of the heart of the human being. To say, keep it simple, man, in your life. Look for the simple blessings. Learn to be grateful just for a group of people who share your pain. And let that be the basis of the reconstruction of your whole life. And you will rediscover joy. No, none of that will get fixed. But it's resentment. At the heart of it is a pain which is too hard to cope with, so they medicate. And the medication they take is killing, is deadly. And so who wins? Who wins? The other gods win. The other gods.
Yeah.
Now you've made me feel even worse.
Well,
Yeah,
You know that that's in the heart of every human being. We are flawed
right?
right from the beginning.
I mean, as much as people don't like some things that the Apostle Paul says in the New Testament, some of my most endearing verses of his own testimony was when he writes things like, who will deliver me? Who will deliver me from this shell of a man? The things that I want to do, I don't do, and the things that I don't do, those things I don't want to do, those are the things that I do, and I do so easily. Like, who will deliver me? And then, of course, he appeals to God. And I think here, this group of people in this time, I don't know, it's like God's past asking them to repent. God's past it. Like, you've blown it. I don't even know who you people are.
yeah. You're not my people.
Yeah, you're not my people. How can you be called my people and live the way you live? You can't.
Better hurl you out, so.
I'm the God who infused in the patterns of life and of nature that one grain of wheat falls into the ground and produces 100-fold, so that no one would ever starve on the earth. That's built into the very structure of human life. But you all come along. You invent harvesting machinery, gleaners they're called, these big machines that cost $400,000. They go through a wheat field and they don't drop one single grain of wheat, not one.
Nothing's
leave
left over.
anything for
Not
the
one.
gleaners.
Nothing for the birds, nothing for the,
The poor
and
that
they
used to
call
come.
their machinery
The
gleaners.
Right.
Like,
That
Was-
used to be the right of
yeah,
the people. to
that was
come
the
and-
poor person who'd come out and get the bounty of God, collect the bounty of God. Man, don't I sound like an old man?
Oh, you're the right group. Furthermore, the wheat that they're harvesting, gleaning, very often has been modified so that it can survive even though weed killers are put down and.
Yeah. Yeah, the first taste I had of how this was affecting farming when I was on the farm was they invented this thing called bearded wheat. That the wheat kernels would grow long little stubs or beards, and they hurt. And so what it did was it stopped the deer from eating the wheat. I mean, deer wouldn't touch it because as soon as they opened their mouth, they had a mouthful of thistle.
Burrs, yeah.
Yeah, thistle. And then the reason it's personal to me is that when the harvester came along and when it harvested bearded wheat, those little stubbles would break off and they would get mingled in with the dirt and the dust, which was always part of wheat harvesting anyway. And I got prickly heat from it. I mean, my body broke out. And every time I had to stay away from the harvesting machine when they were harvesting wheat because those little things, they entered my skin. And it was terrible. But
And
it was,
other people didn't have the same reaction.
no, everybody didn't have.
You're such a.
Bless me. I'm so sensitive. But part of it was my cousin had a similar reaction, but we were the teenage boys that were back in the back,
Yeah.
and the dirt and the dust was blowing on us. My uncle was up in the air-conditioned cab. He wasn't having any effect of it. But what was it about? It was about tweaking the pattern of nature to then get more and more and more. And, one thing my grandfather used to whine about all the time was that when the farmers came from Europe, from Germany, they were good farmers. And part of what made them good farmers was they left windrows.
Yep.
They had wind blocking weeds and trees and everything. And my grandfather's farm had windrows all over the place.
That's all it takes.
Yeah, it made hunting for rabbits really good. But when the generation of farmers next came in, they cut down the trees in the windrows. They moved the fields.
We've got more
So you
land.
can get more yield.
There are no windrows
Now
anymore.
there's
No, not in the
very
United
few
States.
actual traditional farmers. It's all big farmer, big
Agro-industry.
business and they don't care about that. And,
Well,
and weren't we during the Khrushchev era? The pride of the world, look how much yield we can get out of an acre of wheat. And how do we do it? We're gonna send that over, the Russians and Khrushchev was so impressed. And we're doing it with all these chemicals. Now, don't we rue the day that we introduced all these chemicals?
Some people do.
Well, we still try and export all that kind of stuff, but
Well, and the windrows were supposed to prevent wind erosion, which
Yeah.
took away the topsoil.
all right.
What they did was they've invented chemicals that they can put down that will block the erosion anyway. And the effect of the chemicals, they don't really know. Take a while to know all of that stuff.
Take a couple
Well,
generations, people will be dead.
They just absolutely ignore the fact that there's a whole ecosystem underneath
Right.
And
that
you
top
mess up
layer.
with it.
And
Yeah, they don't.
We kind of figured some of that out in the 30s with the Dust Bowl, but
oh, but then they found another
A way to
chemical
get
way,
around
Right, they had found a way around it.
rather than saying, well, let's just go back to windrows or hedgerows or whatever, let's, you know,
Or leaving a field fallow for a season and then going
exactly.
different.
Or doing rotating crops or, I mean, there are lots of options that would be better, but
And there's,
that takes more work, more thought, more,
in the mountains of northern Pennsylvania and in Ohio, the Sourland Mountains.
yeah.
The farmers that came there from other areas didn't know anything about crop rotation. And they depleted all the nitrogen out of the soil. And so, my brother-in-law, who's a farmer, he'll tell you, you look at the houses, the size of the houses that were built in South Jersey and in southern Pennsylvania, where the Dutch and the farmers came, you see these big houses, because the land was kept rich.
Interesting.
You go further north, and there's a reason they call them the Sourland Mountains, because the soil became sour. They just depleted all the nitrogen out of the soil. They couldn't figure out why the next year's hay crop was abysmal. It just...
Forgot about the beans, didn't they?
They didn't. And so, you know, do we learn? I don't know, we don't learn.
We don't learn.
This is your evil hard hearts. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. And,
Okay, which part of this is hopeful?
at the end,
Yeah, but that's,
I don't know, I think
there-
it is. I don't know.
it is hopeful, but I also, I have to say, I'm feeling quite distressed anyway, but because this is going to take place in front of your eyes, you know, during your lifetime,
Right.
all of this horrible stuff is going to be going on. Now, this restoration, you may not see.
That's right. It would have
probably
to be
won't be.
restoration to your children. Which in their way of thinking was supposed to be okay, you know, because you lived on for your children. So if your children see the deliverance, they had a whole different way of dealing with time
Sure.
and longevity. How do you live on? Concepts of heaven were not even
Right,
No,
clearly not there.
nowhere there. Or
Nor
eternal
hell.
life, or hell. Nowhere.
I mean,
Hell was-
this is hellish enough, isn't it? No mirth.
Hell is on earth.
Jeez.
They won't even sing a funeral song for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but the good news is, God's gonna throw you in the lake and bring you to near drowning, but at some point, just before you're completely extinct, God will send some fishermen out to pull you out of the water.
Well, come on, fishermen.
And
I think God means we should do it ourselves, but
Maybe it's not too late for us. It was too late for them.
yeah. Or was it? I mean, what's the point of Jeremiah speaking this word? I don't know. Is it done in that Jeremiah has spoken it? Or is it, you know, the people not yet awaken and turn to God? Look at the city of Nineveh, right? Story of Nineveh. Nineveh was completely sold out. Now, again, this is much later, but Nineveh was sold out to all the ways of greed and prostitution and all kinds of manner of evil living. and Jonah was sent to preach a word like this. And Jonah did. Jonah said, you people are headed for turmoil and destruction and suffering. And Jonah, you know, I don't want to tell them that.
I don't want to do it. Yeah.
I don't want to tell them that because I know what's going to happen.
Send someone else.
Yeah, well, he was like, I know what's going to happen.
Poor Jonah.
They're gonna repent.
Right, and
They're
you're
gonna
gonna.
And I don't want that because
I don't want that because then I'm going to have to be friends with the Ninevites. I don't want to be friends with the Ninevites. I don't want anything to do with
no,
them.
I can't forgive. I cannot forgive them.
That's right. I want them to burn in hell. And so he goes after
Okay.
the whale's belly. He goes and he preaches the word like Jeremiah would, and the people go,
Oh,
hey,
you've got a point.
you have a good point. And they tear their clothes and they change their economic system and they become a city of generosity and hope. And then you see Jonah at some tree outside. He's, you know, rolled up under the tree weeping.
Not happy that he was so successful.
And God says, what the hell is
weird.
wrong with you? And he goes, I told you they were going to there was hope in the
suffer.
world. And now, oh, man.
It's kind of how I feel when I see somebody I know voted for Trump, and I say, you see what, you want that, that retribution,
Right,
right?
I told you
And
so.
it's just what Trump is doing, he wants retribution, and I gotta remind myself, that's not the proper attitude, not to remember the Jonah story.
I'm glad that's in the Bible, actually.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
And it's interesting because, we make a big deal about the whale and, and all the rest of that, and is it possible?
The point?
Nothing was further from the point than do you get what's going on in the life of Jonah, in the life of us as human beings.
Right.
We get our self-righteous attitudes, we become judgmental of other people, we pray damnation upon them, but God says, go give them a chance. And we go, nope, I don't want them to do well. I don't want them to survive. I want brimstone to come down out of heaven and burn up all their...
And then they'll see.
Yeah, then they'll see, and it don't matter if they see or not, because they'll be dead.
Yeah, and so will you though.
And
That's like when every kid gets angry at their parent and says, when I die, then you'll be sorry. Okay, but you'll be dead. Really?
Well, Barbara, we haven't heard much from you.
I've been ruminating. Well, last night I did send an email to Trump.
Oh, did you get on his
Debbie
website?
texted me about the Gaza ridiculousness. So of course I was upset, and I'm thinking, well, it's not going to do any good, but at least I will get it out. But I also didn't want to show anger. So I sent a note and I say, I pray that you will have mercy on the vulnerable and will show caring and compassion.
All right, then.
The end.
And you signed
I
it?
felt a little
Your
better
name.
than after that. 'Cause I've been sending so many things to people that I know are supporting what I want, and sending so many petitions to please take care of this, that, I'm thinking, how can I do something to at least make my words known to the, I don't want to say the other side or the enemy. The one who's unfortunately in charge, I guess.
He and Melania, thank you for your comment, didn't they?
I didn't get a thank you.
Well,
Maybe
they have that right on
I'll
the
find
website.
someone knocking at my door, but I gave my New Jersey address, so they can't find me for a while.
oh, don't worry.
You should sign a different name though. That's it.
Although Elon will, I'm sure Elon will find my address
That's what I'm
somewhere.
gonna say. They're in the data bank, they'll find you. Don't worry about that. They're
She's
watching
right.
you right now.
That's a good idea, just sign Musk's name when you write anything nasty. Just put his name down. Oh,
God will come looking for us. God will come looking for us.
God knows where we are.
Yeah, and even with the
Even
kind of
better than
levels of
Musk.
abandon and suffering that will come from ruthless greed and selfishness and self-first kind of ideas in the world, you will succeed for a while. You'll have these gods that you think are gods will show some prosperity, and you will have them, but you are destroying your life. You're destroying your life. We can expand it today. We're destroying our world, and hopefully we will wake up. Some of the environmental scientists that Laura works with as authors say it's too late.
It is too late. From everything I've read.
It's broken.
We can always hope that there are some elements that the scientists have not taken into account. Because we're going into a new time, a future, that not everything is known.
No, that's right.
And
And
so,
the adaptability that's built into
And sometimes, even in my lifetime, I've seen it, it's pretty surprising.
Yeah. One of the authors that she works with was working with the struggle of polar bears to survive and the loss of the ice sheet. And they've documented that never before in history could polar bears and black and brown bears breed
Yeah,
together.
but they are now.
And they are.
Yeah.
They're breeding.
Interesting, I
And
didn't
so
know that.
there's kind of a survival of the race that's going on among them. And so he points to that. You know, he's probably, she calls him up to get hope.
Aww.
But, you know, because he's done, his one book is called The Tides, a study of the oceans, and he also did Buzz, a whole global kind of environmental study of bees. And he did a book called Feathers, which talks about the miracle of the bird. One thing in that is he shows that birds have to shed their feathers when they fly. And he takes you into the mindset that says they're required to let go of the thing that helps them to fly while they're flying on the hopes that new feathers will come. So, you know, he uses a lot of that kind of language. I think he'd be a great preacher if he was a Christian. But I don't know. By the way, I wanted to let you know, I found out on Sunday that one of the two families, the husband in that, is an environmental consultant.
Wow.
Yeah, at least that's what he does. He consults with companies who want to be green, who want to, you know, who want to care about the environment, and he does
So
work.
he'll lose his job soon.
Yeah, I know. Laura's,
It's like you can't talk
And
about
water?
DEI, you can't talk about.
Is he involved with water? My grandson's looking for a job.
Oh,
I don't know. I mean, it might be worth exploring. I didn't have time to talk to him that much. I was just so happy to, like, wow, that's what you do.
Okay.
A lot of times when younger people come in, I get worried. I get worried that, you know, the gospel we're used to preaching and teaching and hearing, and the worries that we have will fall on hard ears, and then I start to get pushback. You know, pushback. Inevitably, you know, why are we so worried about Gaia? You know, why are we more worried about the people in Patterson? And my response is, oh, you want to do work with Patterson? Okay, go ahead.
We get that too.
Go for it. Like, it's not either or. It's the people of the world, for goodness sake.
Right.
Like, so, and we
My grandson has 10 months, he's signed up for AmeriCorps.
Oh, yeah?
So,
wow.
and AmeriCorps is supposed to pay for him to go to Iowa next week. I have to ask my son if he actually got the tickets.
Good thing I wasn't the Peace Corps.
He's interested in environmental water.
Very
He's
cool.
an engineer, so we'll see.
Nice.
So now we have two people who work for the government. My son is not taking the deal. He said
right.
he will continue. He's been in the patent office now for 25 years.
Wow.
Yep.
Let's hope he can.
Wow.
Yeah.
But, you know, fortunately, he doesn't have to worry. You know, of course, he's expecting a pension, which might not come. But, you know, you think of all the people who, you know, have positions that are being eliminated or being forced to resign. And, you know, that's their life's work and their, you know, way of surviving.
And in many cases, it's also their passion.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. They didn't
Yes.
get there accidentally.
It's not just their paycheck, you know?
Exactly.
Right. Exactly.
That really.
Listening to Andy Kim last night, he was interviewed by Jennifer Rubin, and he was talking about, you know, being in the government and starting out, as Debbie had mentioned, his first job was with USA, with aid. You know, that's where he started. And it was the Bush administration that he worked there. But, you know, and he was convinced that he wanted to work in government. And I'm sure a lot of people feel that way, that they want to make things better.
Because they actually are patriotic.
Right. And they actually have
Exactly.
good hearts. They have hearts, and their hearts are not sold out to, you know, the gods of money and power, really, because, you know, you don't go to Congress to become powerful. You know, it's just not what happens. But they're out there. We're some of them. We are some of them. We have, you know, we have our faults, and we'll have our failures. We have our basic animal hatred for the other side. But we will still work to try to be part of a solution. We will. And thank God for that. I think that's the Spirit of God that comes to us and ministers that to us. Because the world, my father's funeral, I ended my father's eulogy by singing a song, which is, the world didn't give me this spirit, and the world can't take it away.
Okay.
It's an African American song, like, you know, and I got to remember that, you know, this heartache, this yearning, this fear comes from God, and because it comes from God, the world didn't give it to me, but the world can't take that away from me either.
Not unless you let it.
Not unless you let it. And even then, cry out to God to say, don't let it.
Yeah.
You know? Don't let me fall.
Yeah.
All right.
I
So with
appreciate
the
that.
reminder that God is with us and is fighting for us, might be a little more, right, optimistic.
Yeah,
Good
okay,
news.
that is. That is good news.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yep.
Take care.
Okay. Oh, Barbara, before you go, I wanted to let you know, did you turn your machine off yet?
No, I'm still here.
All right. I want to let you know I ordered one of those garments as a trial for the front of the church.
When you say garments, you mean banner.
Banner, yes.
I'm thinking garment you wear,
No.
banner.
No.
Good.
So we'll see. Try it out. See how it works.
What color did you go
I
with?
got purple. The reason I got
Oh.
purple is because we're coming into Lent. So I thought
Okay.
it would make more sense to have it be purple. And then it wasn't outrageously expensive. In fact, this morning it was on sale again for another deep discount. So I'm hoping we get the sale price. And
Great.
maybe enough to buy one for each of the liturgical seasons.
That'd be wonderful. Now, I was concerned, I don't like the black,
I don't either.
Yeah.
right? And especially, he has the black robe and the black, and so we discussed a banner. Does it have a dove?
It does. Yeah, it's that one with the dove coming down. I didn't like
Right.
the red, and it's in the room. Red will work better. Everything's red. You got red in the rug and everywhere else.
That's just not like bright red.
No, but that red is that
Aren't you red?
fire engine red.
Fire engine red, yeah.
MAGA red.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why we don't like it, huh?
That's what I said. I didn't want to say anything, and you said red, and I said, no.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Good.
Well, red is only.
Looking forward to seeing it.
it's only used for one day. That's why the red paraments are the best condition ones. You know, the black, actually the black was, you know, from the camera consultants and everything. You know, you go to
Right.
a studio and your picture taken, they want black in the background because
Right.
it sets up the contrast. So we'll see what it does. We'll see what it does to the depth and all the rest of that. And the camera's ability has an automatic focus on it. So I can move in and out, it follows me with focus. But we'll try it. See what happens.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Talk to
Take
you
care.
later. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Out into the cold.
My friend who moved to Michigan but had been helping me regularly during COVID
Yes.
sent me this book. She said she has a church group that's working on it, studying it, discussing it. And it looks fascinating. I haven't actually gotten into it yet.
Refuge of faith.
Refugia.
Refugia.
I've been reading this for my church reading group. I kept thinking how you would enjoy it in a week where it has been feel hopeless. I want to do what I can to care for this wonderful creation. So,
Sounds
it
fabulous.
might be something that Laura is already familiar with, I don't know, but it's Fortress.
Yeah, it's
So probably not.
maybe not. I mean, she hasn't done a lot with Fortress because it's so in-house
Sure.
with the Christian church. But
This is the back that I was impressed with. How to become a healer on a damaged earth and inspire others to do the same.
Well, there you go. That's what we want to
looking for a
do.
mission in your life? There
Well, I
it
don't need another mission.
is. No.
You know, honestly, that is what my husband and I thought our mission was going to be when we retired.
Well, I think you're in that mission. I do.
Yeah.
Not in the same way.